Hey friends, I'm Gio, and welcome to my channel. Today's story is tender, raw, and real. A moment of quiet truth, where love speaks louder than fear. If you've ever felt unseen, this one's for you. Let's breathe through it together. Tuesday, about 7. Phillip's flying in just for me. I didn't even ask. He just did it. I stood just outside the Denver International Airport, the late May air already heavy with the promise of summer. It's forecast to be a hot one. My gut churns. Anticipation? Anxiety? I'm not sure I know the difference anymore. I'm Ulysses Timothy Henderson Morton. Yuli to my friends. I actually have some now. My best friend, Zickers, is a serious computer geek. His real name is Herbert Zickersley, but he's gone by Zickers since elementary school. Friends. That's a concept I'm still getting used to. People who know I'm gay and want to be around me, especially for my graduation. Just like I'm not used to having a family. I'm adopted, 2 years now. I have a mom and a dad, a kid sister, and a big brother. My brother Cliff and his fiancée Charlene have already flown in from Michigan, but the man I'm waiting for is flying in from South Carolina. Cliff's old roommate, Phillip. The man who stood by me as I learned how to live. The man I called almost daily for the first 6 months after the Mortons adopted me. And it evolved into a Sunday gab fest lasting a couple of hours. Phillip is more than a friend, more than a brother. I don't have the word for it. Soulmates? No, we're not in a romantic relationship. Best friends doesn't quite fit either. Best mates? Close, but not quite. Phillip once teased that we must be soul buddies, because sometimes we talk all night, or call each other at the exact same moment. It stuck. Soul buddy. The kind of person who knows your storm before you name it, who shows up without being asked, who makes you feel like maybe, just maybe, I might be normal. I know it sounds corny. We met when I was 16, a throwaway moment that meant everything to me. I've only met him 3 times in person, but he knows me like we've lived together all our lives. He knows I'm gay, knows the trouble I have trusting, and talks me down when my mind gets stuck. Abandonment issues, complex PTSD, that's what they call it. I've lived in the foster system most of my life. With Phillip's help, I'm learning to trust again. Denver International smelled like an airport. Cigarette smoke, car exhaust, random perfume. It sounds like any street in Denver. Cars honking, somebody yelling, "Get out of the way," and a random couple smooching their goodbyes or hellos. I'm a little jealous of them. What would it be like to trust someone that much? I stood alongside the minivan, searching the crowd. My dad had driven. I have my license, but since that little fender bender back in January, I'm still earning my driving privileges back. My phone beeped. A text from Phillip. Pulled our bags from the carousel and heading to you. Can't wait, I texted back. A nearby door opened. Dad pointed. There they are. Phillip hadn't changed. 4 years older than me and recently graduated with a bachelor's of sociology. I went to his graduation last year, his and my brother's, before Phillip moved back to South Carolina. Easy smile, topaz eyes, his hair lighter than I remembered. His new boyfriend, Bixby, gripped his arm with the kind of hold that said, "Mine." Maybe I was reading too much into it. I have that problem, especially when thoughts turn weird. Still, a speck of annoyance lodged itself in my throat, and it took all I had not to say something. What had my therapist said? Because I spent so many years with no friends, I'm overprotective of the few I have. Bixby was working on his master's in computer engineering, stood about as tall as Dad, had the classic yellow blonde hair. They'd been dating since November. Phillip wore new jeans and an Adidas t-shirt. Bixby wore a black long-sleeve button-down shirt with khaki chinos. They saw us the same time we saw them. Phillip smiled when he saw him, but a shadow lingered in his eyes, like he was trying to be happy for two people at once. I'd never met Bixby before, except on Zoom calls. Short black hair, blue eyes, and the smile of a grinning cuckoo about to announce the time. I wanted to wedge myself between them. Not out of hate, but to protect Phillip from a shark. Phillip's mine. He's my friend, not yours. Don't push me away, Phillip. Don't forget about me. What if Phillip found someone better than me? What would happen to me? Would he throw me away? Just like everyone else I'd ever known? What if the Mortons found someone better? Would they kick me out too? I stilled my breath, calming my mind. My thoughts are spiraling again. I'm safe. My family loves me. My family chose me. I glanced at Dad. Biting my lip, he rolled his eyes and said, I'm sure Phillip needs help with his luggage. Good. He didn't suspect the chaos in my mind. I ran. About 3 feet from Phillip, I jumped into his arms. My arms wrapped around his neck and shoulders. My legs clasped his waist. His breath smelled of cinnamon. Good thing he caught me. Welcome home, I yelled. Phillip laughed like he had invented joy. Look at you. You're so cute. I bet you're driving all the boys crazy. I hugged him like I hadn't seen him since last Christmas. Which I hadn't. I squeezed him as hard as I could. Missed you. With every shot so far, Phillip laughed, set me down and said, Identity check. Who's buried in Grant's tomb? Bixby shook his head. Dumb question. Grant's buried in Grant's tomb. Phillip and I both chuckled and said as one, Ulysses and his husband. Our private joke. To which Bixby lowered his eyes, muttering, That's stupid. I guess you had to be there. Introduce us, babe. Phillip laughed, but his eyes didn't. Not fully. Like he was trying to be two people at once. The one who flew in for me, and the one who flew in with Bixby. We'd reached the Mortons' minivan. Dad opened the back for the suitcases. Mr. Morton, Yulie, this is my boyfriend, Bixby Parsons, Phillip said, but his tone darkened. Bixby seemed like he wanted to add something, but kept his mouth shut. Phillip continued. Mr. Morton is Cliff's dad. Remember I told you about my old roommate? The one that's getting married? Bixby replied, his voice louder than expected. Yep. Have they set a date yet, Yulie? Phillip asked. I ducked under his arm, pulling it around my shoulders. He'd changed cologne since last we met. Something sporty and fresh, with hints of a summer morning. June, but not this one, but a year from now, I said. They are waiting to hear back from the reception hall about what dates they have open. Some kind of double booking problem. Bixby eyed me up and down. And you are? He asked. The voice on the other end of the phone, I replied, trying to sound mysterious. Phillip ruffled my hair. You're adorable when you're acting bratty, he teased. I pulled away, muttering, Stop that. I'm not a kid. I'll be 18 next month. With a chuckle, Phillip shook his head as if debating something. His features relaxed when he looked at me. Yulie is the man I've been mentoring for the past 2 years, though he's grown up a lot since I've seen him last. Literally, like 3 inches. I beamed. It's a pleasure, Bixby, Mr. Morton replied, sunlight highlighting the gray in his hair. And it's Cameron to my friends. You're from South Carolina too? Recent resident. We met in Somerville during a conference, Bixby replied, letting go of his suitcase to shake Dad's hand. I didn't let on that I already knew all about the conference, their meeting for coffee, and the date at the nightclub a week later. Phillip and I talked, often and deep, about everything. What had started as a big brother relationship evolved. We shared our lives, our dreams, talked about boyfriends. He even emailed me a link to a video about Santorini. I've always wanted to go. He had said that we'll go together once I graduate. Dad and Bixby talked about the conference while I wheeled the suitcases to the back of the minivan and loaded them. My backpack? Passenger seat. I never leave home without it. Not because I expect to run, but because I remember what it felt like to have nowhere to go. It's my anchor, my escape plan, my history in zippers and straps. I carry my past on my back. Cliff once called it my security blanket. It carries different things now than it did in the old days. A math textbook, a sketch pad full of designs I've been recreating on the school mainframe, the April 2018 issue of National Geographic Traveler, with the article, The Stunner Santorini, the yellowed newspaper clipping about my parents' car accident, a couple of pens, my journal, the ancient adoption pamphlet, even though I'm already adopted, a photo of me and my new family, my new smartphone and charger, one shirt, one pair of shorts, one pair of boxer briefs, emergency deodorant, and a toothbrush. The basics. I'm ready to leave. I hope I don't have to. And snacks, of course. Red licorice. I love licorice. A half-eaten bag of cheesy Doritos, and gummy worms. Teresa got me hooked. We bite the heads off and let them dangle like vampire fangs from our canine teeth. Mom thinks we're insane, especially when Dad joins in. The most important thing in my backpack? A picture I've been working on in art class. Phillip and me. Colored pencil. It's taking me nearly 20 hours to get it right. It's not the same backpack I carried from foster home to foster home. This one's new, sturdier, more pockets. Always packed for a quick getaway. Even though I'll be 18 next month and adopted, part of me still waits for CPS to take me away. Everything's loaded, I called. I'll take the back. One of you can ride up front. My unsaid wish, that Bixby would take the front seat, so Phillip and I could talk, or so I could snuggle into him like that first night we met. Yuli, Bixby said slowly, you're the special case Phil's been working on. Special case? My mind echoed. Phillip glanced at me, eyes narrowing, mouth closing. Bixby didn't seem to notice, but continued, I swear you talk to him more than I do, and I live with him. Phillip elbowed Bixby. Maybe we should just get in the van. Whatever makes you happy, babe. Was that a hint of jealousy in Bixby's voice? My gut tightened. Maybe he didn't mean it the way it sounded. Maybe he was just trying to understand? Special case, echoed in my brain. I kept my smile pleasant. I don't mean to be high maintenance. The triggers can happen at any time. Like now. It was like I was outside my body looking at my mind, at the slow spiral defragmenting my psyche. Sometimes I don't even know it. I try to pretend I'm normal, but I'm a special case. Look at my chart. Parents died so long ago I don't know what they looked like, except for an ancient newspaper clipping about the car accident. Bounced from foster home to foster home, rejected at all of them. Special case, my mind whispered. Special case, my mind whispered again. Special case, like a file, a diagnosis, a problem. I adjusted my backpack strap. Gone. Where was it? Under the passenger seat. Special case. Special case. Why would anyone love me? I'm a high-maintenance time bomb. They called me a special case. Like I was a file to be sorted. A problem to be solved. I am a boy with a backpack, full of memories, full of art, full of snacks and survival. But I'm broken. Special case. Smile. Don't flinch. Don't show it. Had anyone noticed the cycle had started? Special case. Ping-ponged inside my skull. Phillip's here. I'm safe. Dad's here. I closed my eyes, remembering my mantra. I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe. Am I relapsing? I remembered all the late-night phone calls. Phillip ordering me to repeat after him. You're safe. You have a home. You have a family. You're a special case. You're damaged, a former foster mom had said. Special case was the nice nickname the guys at school called me. Foster brat, and others. They didn't mess with me much this year, not after I gut-punched the guy teasing me so hard I broke his rib. 3-day suspension with Mom making me clean everything in the house, and Dad buying me a punching bag. The punching bag's in the garage, and I have to use it every day for at least 30 minutes. That's because I am a special case. The old patterns had kicked in, hyper-analyzing what Bixby had said, looking for subtle meanings, and beginning the panic that could spiral into an episode. Could spiral? It was spiraling. Phillip tapped me on the forehead. Time to get out of your head, Yuli. Count backwards from 5, out loud, just like we practiced. Start with sight. I took a deep breath and opened my eyes. When had I closed them? Dad stood nearby, my backpack in hand. He handed it to me like it was a lifeline. I clutched it to my chest, not just nylon and zippers. This was my proof that I had a place, that someone knew what I needed before I asked. Dad gripped my shoulders. What do you see? Dad repeated. 5 things. Go. I took the pack, clutching it to my chest. 5 things I see. The late afternoon sun glinting off your hair, the tiredness in Bixby's face, Dad's eyebrows lowering, mouth flattening, some woman holding out her phone and explaining something to some worker, a yellow cab just leaving. Good, Dad said. I swallowed and began again. 4 things I hear. The angry honk, a man swearing in Spanish, a woman yelling, Billy, the hiss of an automatic door closing. The pressure began to ease. Bixby rolled his eyes and stepped back. Phillip noticed and glared at Bixby. Close your eyes. Focus, Yuli. Smell. 3 things I smell. Your new cologne. It's nice. The garlic smell of pizza some guy is shoveling into his mouth. Car exhaust. My shoulders sagged. Not much, but a start. Almost done, Dad said. 2 things I feel. The cramped feel of the leather hiking shoes I always wear, and the smoothness of the black pearls on my wrist. Cliff gave me the bracelet last Christmas. 1 thing I taste. The remains of the Snickers bar I'd eaten before Dad and I drove here. Feeling better? Dad asked. I nodded. The humiliation knotted my stomach, but my thoughts had settled down. We drove, me in the front seat, doubting my sanity. Phillip and Bixby in the back, making conversation with Dad. Sometimes I caught Bixby looking at me, like he was cataloging a new bug. The Morton house had 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a living room, kitchen, back porch, 2-car garage. It had a fresh coat of vanilla sunrise paint I'd helped Dad and Mom with, a new flat screen in the living room, and a space in the garage for my electric bike and the punching bag. It was dinner. 8 people crowded around a table meant for 6. Mom's quiet steadiness. Dad's stories about the dry clean mix-up. Teresa's teasing grin. Cliff's wedding plans. Charlene's ring-catching candlelight. Bixby's new job. Something with numbers and long hours. Phillip, waiting on word from WHO, the World Health Organization. He'd applied to be a health systems sociologist. And then me, graduated, still blinking, at the light of it all. The laughter rose as we celebrated with Mom's roast beef and potatoes. We passed bread and creamed peas, salted with love, seasoned with memory and Parmesan. No one said it aloud, but we all felt it. This was a moment worth keeping. I shrunk into my chair. This was my family, and I relished the peace. I want you to celebrate our happiness. Bixby laid a hand on Philip's. I proposed to Philip on the airplane, he said, voice soft but clear, and he said yes. Did I hear that right? The room went quiet. I smiled, I think. I should be happy. For Philip. Bixby smiled as if he'd won the lottery. I was going to do it over a romantic dinner at Rioja, but since I had the ring in my pocket, I couldn't wait. Philip leaned over and kissed Bixby. A light, almost shy kiss. He knelt down in the aisle and said the words right in front of everyone. Everyone was staring, taking pictures, the works. I had to say yes. Bixby took hold of Philip's hand. I'm glad you did, babe. I talked to the stewardess, and she brought out some of the champagne they serve first class, so we could have a toast. Teresa looked at the two men, eyes hungry to hear more. They continued talking, comparing engagements, talking rings, potential honeymoons. But all I could think of was that my soul buddy had found his soulmate. Marriage, a rejection, but with a politically correct name. It felt like I had lost Philip, that the special bond we shared would shrivel and die. Mom brought her tried and true dessert, cream cheese chia pudding, this time topped with white chocolate drizzle and fresh sliced peaches, served with fresh brewed peach tea. Mom and I had made a similar dessert the first night Philip had arrived 2 years ago. He had been Cliff's roommate then, a sociologist in training, and had come to Denver to learn to ski. Instead, he had coached a terrified 16-year-old through the long process of accepting himself. He had cuddled me close that night, letting me talk, cry, unravel completely, without complaint. He had helped me, a forgotten kid starved of kindness, and Philip had shared his. I tried to smile, but my soul wouldn't let me. My eyes blinked fast, blocking the tears hidden within. Philip was about to get married. An uppercut knocked the world out of me. It was stupid of me to feel hurt. He was 22. I'm not quite 18. I forced a breath even though my shoulders remained stiff. My backpack remained at my side. After dinner, Philip took my hand and led me outside to a couple of chairs on the front porch. We sat, an odd silence shared between us. Twisting the black pearls on my wrist, I faked a smile and broke the stillness. Congratulations. A pause, a heartbeat, the time it took for the hand on the clock to tick a single second, but it felt like an eternity. My hand randomly reached for the backpack strap. Philip noticed and took hold of my hand. I didn't want you to find out like this, Philip said, his voice soft, sincere. It's not going to change anything. I'll always be here for you, at the other end of the phone, like always. We'll always be soul buddies. I pulled my hand back, afraid to ask the next question, but needing the answer anyway. What does Bixby think of me? It doesn't matter. You're family, Philip said. Will it change us? No. Phillip gripped me in a hug and quietly said, "My brother is going to be my best man, but I want you as one of my groomsmen. What do you say? Your family as much as Cliff is." I nodded, forcing myself to be happy for him, for my mentor, but not understanding why part of me wasn't happy. "Okay?" I forced cheerfulness. "What do I have to do?" He pulled back a little. Our eyes met. "This won't change anything. You understand? We'll always be soul buddies. I'm always on the other end of the phone. Tell me you understand." "I do," I said. But all I could think about was how near he was. I don't think I'd ever seen him as a brother. Something more. I had a word for it, though I dared not admit it. I was in love with Phillip. It had started that night when he sat with me. "Show me what's in your backpack," he said, reaching for it. Item by item, I brought everything out. He smiled at the National Geographic article, chuckled at the old notebook, flipped through the pages, read the notes he'd written, thumbed through the designs in my sketchbook. When he saw the faded picture of my parents, he paused, ran a finger along its edges, set it aside, then looked at the picture I'd made of the two of us. He cried as he held me. Bixby stepped outside and saw us talking, hugging. His eyes darted towards us, lingered a moment too long, then narrowed. The casual ease around his mouth vanished, replaced by a stiffness in his jaw. He twisted his ring absent-mindedly, pursed his lips as if about to speak, but didn't. He watched us, silently, until Phillip noticed him too. "Bix, come on over and get to know little bro." Little bro, my new nickname from everybody. Bixby tensed, but the moment passed. His face broke into a smile as he sat on Phillip's lap, claiming Phillip's hand with the ring on it, as if daring me to challenge him. Room arrangements were familiar. Cliff and Charlene slept in his old room, currently mine. Ironic, right? Phillip and Bixby took the guest room. I slept on the couch, trying hard not to dream of graduation, of Phillip getting married, and the look in Bixby's eyes whenever he looked at me. I had gotten up to use the bathroom when I heard it. Bixby and Phillip quietly talking. This is an old house, with walls as thick as plywood. "You know Yuli's in love with you. Even you can't be that dumb," Bixby said. "Our relationship is sweet," Phillip said. "Over the last 2 years, he's come back to life. You should have seen Yuli 2 years ago, scared of everyone, of himself mostly, expecting to be abandoned every second of his life. He was terrified of being rejected, but even more of being accepted." "I don't get it," Bixby said. "The Mormons adopted him when he was 16. Isn't that a waste? It's like rescuing a 15-year-old Yorkie. They'll die in a year or two, so why bother?" "Everyone deserves love," Phillip whispered. "Don't get defensive. I'm just putting it out there," Bixby said. "Why are you even involved?" "Because I want Yuli to heal. It broke my heart when I saw him." "That was 2 years ago," Bixby replied. "What is he to you? Do I even have a chance?" "He's like a little brother. Yuli helped me realize that I should be grateful for what I have, for the people in my life. You already know that I lived on the streets for 6 months. Yuli helped me as much as I helped him. You don't have to be jealous." "You think I'm jealous?" Bixby murmured, his voice tinged with a sultry edge I'd never heard before. A quiet moment. Then a second moment. Then Phillip shortly inhaled, "What are you?" Bixby's voice softened, Perhaps we should talk about, other. But their voices faded away. I returned to the couch. The next 2 days were a whirlwind. Why? Somehow I was part of the graduation committee. Me, the guy who bounced around 11 schools, didn't fit in, rejected everywhere. Turns out, my math teacher had recommended me, and I wasn't even getting an A in the class. It gets worse. I'd been asked to give a 5-minute speech. To prepare, I had 10 note cards scribbled with things I would say. I wrote and rewrote them a dozen times trying to get it right. Mom helped me research, but Charlene became my coach. She was a member of the debate club back in high school and preferred helping me than hanging out with Cliff playing video games at one of his old friends' houses. I'd gotten about 30 minutes sleep. I didn't have the best grades, wasn't the most popular, wasn't on any teams. But the vice principal asked me, right before the valedictorian speech. They wanted someone who'd been buried in the trenches, whatever that means. Charlene worked with me for hours, creating talking points, making me stand in front of a mirror, or even reciting the speech to Mom, Zickers, and Teresa. She made me rewrite the cards. Funny, I was too afraid to tell Mom and Dad how scared I was, but I think they already knew. When nobody was around, I memorized the cards, closing my eyes in the shower and pretending I was in front of an audience. Teresa said it was nice. Mom said it made her cry. Zickers wondered if we had any cookies. Charlene said, "Good, now we'll work on your delivery." Cliff's sage advice? Go up there and wing it, little bro. Nobody even remembers them anyway. Graduation day. Spent all morning getting signatures in my yearbook, reciting my speech in my head for good measure, reviewing my cards for tonight. Good speakers have their speeches memorized, right? I'd stared in the mirror so often reciting it that I had a name for every zit on my forehead. Today of all days, the pimples waged a military assault, and I was losing. Hopefully no one will take pictures of me. The afternoon had me helping set up 1,000 chairs in the gym, hung streamers and banners, help with miles of cables, and cart tables from one side of the gym to the other. The vice principal couldn't make up her mind where she wanted anything. After it was all set up, finally, I rode my bike home, chatting with the Zickers over the phone. We'd meet later if we could. Phillip and Bixby were gone, hanging out with Cliff and Charlene. They'll meet us there, Dad had said. Mom had made a simple lasagna that I couldn't eat. I was too nervous. The secret to public speaking, Dad said once we had a quiet moment, find someone you trust. Look at them and pretend you're talking to them and only them. It helps. I've never been so scared in my life, I admitted. Is it worse than Christmas 2 years ago? Dad asked. I bit my lip. That was worse. Dad pulled a small, dark blue box out of his pocket. I want you to know that your mom and I are very proud of you. You've come a long way in 2 years. I accepted the small box, its touch smooth and chill. What is this? A reminder that we chose you. His voice choked. I slid the cover off the box. Inside lay a graduation tassel. Not in our school colors of green and gold, but a rainbow. Behind it was a card, the rainbow prayer. Later, when we were at the gym, I was adjusting my hunter green robes over my suit when Phillip took my cap off the chair, attached the tassel to it, and placed it on my head. He adjusted it, played with my hair for a second, and said, "Seeing you walk the line, It's the happiest day of my life." "Do you have to wear your backpack?" Bixby asked. "I'll hold it for you." Cliff showed up, Charlene holding his arm. "Better let him keep it. Just remember to add this, little bro." Charlene unzipped my backpack, just far enough to attach a small pride flag pin to it. Then, noticing my cards lying on top, she took them from the backpack and tucked them into the graduation robe's pockets. She zipped the backpack back up. "It's for luck. It's best to have them and not need them," she said, kissing my cheek. Cliff punched my shoulder. "And not have one when you need it." Dad cleared his throat. "Cliff, we're in public." "Bro wisdom, dude." Cliff raised his hands in surrender. "Little bro knows what I mean." I patted the cards in my pocket. Cliff slapped me on the shoulder. "Finally getting old. Still, you're not old enough to drink or plan a bachelor party. So, will you be one of my groomsmen? I'll plan your bachelor party in return for the favor." "Don't listen to my husband-to-be," Charlene whispered, winking. "Let me plan your bachelor party. I know the right guys." "Enough of that," Bixby said, though his grin seemed forced. "Let the boy get in line." Mom stepped forward, adjusted my cap, and neatening my hair as only a mother could. Her smile was a tear-filled scrunch. "You've grown up," she said. Should I roll my eyes? I chose to give Mom a hug instead. "Graduates, please line up in the hall in the order we practiced," the vice principal said from the mic. "The procession will begin in 10 minutes. A quick hug with everyone, and I found Zickers in the hall. We spoke briefly and promised to do video games tomorrow after work. Then we found our places in line. Mine was in the H section. Zickers went back to the Z's. The art teacher walked up and down the line, making sure we were presentable. He eyed my backpack, raised an eyebrow, and checked off something on a list. "You take your backpack into the shower too?" I shrugged. "It's waterproof." He nodded, moved on to the student behind me. The principal gave some opening remarks. Then the classic pomp and circumstance played through the speakers. One by one, we marched in, took our seats, as dozens of phones recorded us. This must have been the first time our entire class was quiet, together, at the same time, ever. The 10 minutes it took for the entire class to march in and take their seats felt like one. An ocean of green robes. We each received copies of the program. The first page was the order of events. I looked and found my name. Student speaker, Ulysses Henderson Morton, the fourth event on the list, right before the valedictorian, right after the student body president. The rest of the pages were the list of graduates. I found my name there too. Tiny print on the first page, second column, about a third of the way down. I'd never thought I'd make it this far. I never thought I would graduate. Yet here I am. 11 families, 11 schools. Look at me now. I flashed back to all the families I'd lived with. The Talbots, the Thompsons, some I barely remember. I glanced around for Zickers. Couldn't find him among the green caps and gowns. Looked about for my family. Mom couldn't stop smiling. Dad had pulled out his phone. Cliff and Charlene whispered to each other. Teresa was with her friends. Bixby had an arm around Philip's shoulders, whispering to him. Philip met my gaze. He smiled. I smiled back. Bixby noticed. He didn't smile. I couldn't tell why that made me sad. The computer teacher walked near, caught my attention, and nodded. The nerves jumped into hyperdrive. Showtime. I followed him up to the stage, waited my turn, and the principal said, "Next, We are privileged to hear from one of our students, Yuli Henderson Morton. The teachers recommended him as someone who exemplifies the spirit of our school. Light applauded. I glanced at my family. Charlene gave me a thumbs up. Cliff, Dad, and Phillip leaped to their feet, clapping. Mom did so as well, but with a little more grace. Bixby clapped politely until Phillip knocked his shoulder. Then Bixby rose to his feet and clapped. The principal gestured to the podium. I swallowed the butterflies in my chest. My shoulders had tensed into iron. My throat had gone dry. Every word I had memorized vanished. My mind became a blank white board, an empty desert boiling under the sun, dry, barren, nothing. I gripped the podium to keep from falling. My knees started to shake. The back of my neck crawled. The cards. I could read them. They're just in my pocket. The panic eased. Charlene had tucked them in my pocket. She must have known that I'd get scared. Of course she did. She'd been in debate, had to speak all the time. She must have gotten scared too. Except my pocket was empty. No cards. The panic doubled. My chest sunk. I wanted to cry. My face would have flushed, except I was so cold. Where were my cards? What do I do? I looked at my family. Mom smiled, believing in me. Dad had his phone out, ready to record me. Cliff had his arm around his fiancée and gave me a chin lift. Charlene mouthed, "You can do it." I looked at Phillip. Kind eyes. I remembered the first night I'd met him, how he held me, talked with me until I finally went to sleep. No one had shown me such care before, such understanding. He had, and had been there every time I had called him. I quickly ran through the 5 things I see, 4 things I heard, 3 things I smelled, 2 things I felt, 1 item I tasted. My soul calmed. I connected with Philip's eyes, felt the words flow again, and spoke to Phillip, and only Phillip. He nodded as if he sensed the connection too. His smile gave me the hope that I could survive back then. And it did so again tonight. I took a deep breath, shoulders tense under the weight of the backpack, and began. I used to carry my life in a backpack. Now I carry hope. God doesn't always give us the script. Sometimes He gives us the people, and He blessed me with some pretty amazing ones. My parents died when I was 2. I don't remember them. All I have is a clipping, barely even a picture. It's all folded, wrinkled, but it's my history even if I don't recognize the people. I unzipped my backpack and pulled out the National Geographic magazine and removed my only picture of my parents, the old newspaper clip about their car accident. This is my 11th school. The Mortons, my 11th family. They adopted a scared, almost homeless kid with issues. They didn't care. They loved me anyway and gave me a home. Everybody looked my way. Dad had his phone out, focused on me. Charlene nodded. Phillip met my stare. And then there's Phillip, I continued. He's become my big brother, my best friend, the first person who accepted me as me. I owe the person I am today, not only to the kindness of the Mortons, but Phillip's love and support. Phillip stared at me, a slight blush in his cheeks. The first time I met Phillip, he helped me understand and accept myself. We ate Mom's candy cane fudge, and he listened to a 16-year-old gay kid who had never known love. I'm not saying that for kudos or pity, but for you to understand where a foster kid comes from. I was a person to him, to the Mortons, not a case number, but flesh and blood. For that, and more, I will always love him and my family. Mom dabbed her eyes, and Dad placed an arm around her shoulders. I used to think family was a lie, that it never existed. The Mortons and Phillip showed me that love is something delicate, and never to be taken for granted. I don't remember much about the rest of the talk, except I made it through it. Turns out, my 5 minutes stretched into 7 minutes. I left with cheers and a standing ovation, at least from Zickers, a few friends, and my family, especially Phillip. They cheered like I was a hero in a movie. My soul sang, and my smile. Was there ever a bigger smile in the history of the world? Flew with the eagles. It was a solar event that satellites viewed from orbit. The crowd chuckled. I looked up. Phillip had left his seat and came to me, laughing. "You were incredible," he said, hugging me. I held him for one tick of the clock before one of the math teachers shushed us. Laughing, I returned to my seat, tracing the exact route I took to the stage, checking for my lost cards. No cards. There wasn't a hole in the pocket, so they must have fallen out. I asked the people around my seat if they'd seen them. They checked, but nobody had. I pulled out my phone and sent a group text to Phillip and my family. "Thank you for loving a damaged kid and giving him time to heal." I hit send. Mom read it and leaned into Dad. He squeezed her shoulders and lightly kissed her forehead. Mom replied to the text with, "We'll celebrate with orange fudge and chocolate caramel ice cream when we get home." Cliff rolled his eyes and Charlene playfully punched his arm. His text? "Don't make it awkward, little bro." Phillip sent me a single-word text. "Ditto." I still had a few minutes while the valedictorian droned on. I sent another group text, this time including Zickers. "It's stupid to wonder since I've survived the speech, but my cards fell out of my pocket. Anybody see them?" Zickers texted, "You must have smoked them." That didn't make sense, but it's Zickers all right. My family looked about their chairs. Dad glanced into the aisle. Their text all said, "No," except Charlene. "So that's why you didn't stick to script. Still good, though." Phillip's reply chilled me. "Talk later." His glance scared me. His face had become ice. So had my heart. The old instincts kicked in. My breathing became heavier. My palms itched. I had done something wrong. Something had offended Phillip. What had I said? Was it the text? I reread what I had sent. Only a loving thank you. Harmless. Maybe it was the speech. What I thought was gratitude could have been construed as oversharing, maybe embarrassing, like airing dirty laundry out in public. Maybe it wasn't dirty laundry. It was only memories, events I hold precious, sacred because it helped me heal. Maybe Phillip didn't see it that way. My heart congealed, cooled, and stopped beating. Had I embarrassed the man I secretly love? The man who let a dumb kid talk for hours and hours? He was 4 years older, and we talked all the time. Had I overstepped my boundaries somehow? I looked at my phone, at his text. Talk later. I glanced at him. He sat stiffly, eyes staring in the direction of the podium. But when the crowd laughed at a minor joke, he didn't even move. Cliff sat next to him. They whispered something. Cliff became rigid, no longer at ease. He's got this tell when something bothers him. Stupid, innocent, but it's always the same. His right hand runs through his hair, fingers slightly scratching behind his ear. Without even thinking, his fingers flushed through his hair, gently scratching behind his ear. Phillip and Cliff had been roommates for a couple of years, were brothers from another mother, best friends. Were they both angry? At me? What had I done today? That damn speech. What I had said had offended both of them. I replayed the speech in my head. It seemed innocent enough. But I had goofed up somehow. Should I text them, "I'm sorry"? No, I embarrassed them in public, so an apology needs to be face-to-face. Right after the ceremony, before we get home. What if it is so bad Phillip won't talk to me? Then the steel beam dropped onto my head, hard, heavy, devastating in its power. What if what I had said had hurt so much that Phillip was about to reject me? Like all the other families before, like all my friends, my hands started shaking. I took my backpack off and held it, the only safe space I owned. "Stand up," the student next to me hissed. "Didn't you hear them? It's time." It was time for the official ceremony. We lined up, and the procession began. It took 45 minutes. A line of green-robed students, some with leis, some with corsages, even a cowboy hat. I was the only one with a backpack. When I stood on the podium, the vice principal said, "Ulysses Timothy Henderson Morton, the backpack boy." Those who knew me chuckled. Phillip, Cliff, Mom, Dad, Charlene, and Zickers all gave me a huge cheer. After the ceremony, I signed a few programs, picked up my diploma, and was in 5 million selfies. I texted my folks, "Where are you guys?" "Home," Mom texted. "Getting the party ready. Your grandparents are coming by. Dad is waiting by the car." I checked the parking lot, found him, and showed him all the pictures I'd taken. "Proud of you, kiddo," he said as we drove home. The house had a yellow banner with white letters, "Congrats, Yuli," and music playing inside. "Hurry and get changed," Dad said. I ran inside and passed the guest room. Phillip and Bixby were standing around the bed, faces grim. "When are you going to grow up? He's a kid." Bixby's voice held anger. "He's more adult than you," Phillip's replied, but his voice was tight, sharp. The argument was never meant for me to hear. I pushed the door open anyway and entered. My note cards were on the bed, out of order, but I recognized my neat handwriting. Charlene's notes in the margins, the coffee drip on the third card accidentally highlighting the word assessment. So grown-up sounding, a word I had hoped would make me look like I knew what I was talking about. Only 8 cards out of 10. Numbers 1 and 3 were missing. The other 2? Sticking out of Bixby's pocket? The first card had some lame joke I was going to open with. What's green and grows in the dark and gets better grades? The answer, the fungus on last month's meatloaf. They won the science fair. Their project was called Revenge of the Leftovers. Maybe it was an omen. Dumb joke, and I felt dumb standing here. Phillip stood there, fists clenched. "To think I even considered marrying you. You do realize how stupid this was, how he'll feel when he finds out." "I don't care. I'm done competing with a 17-year-old, Bixby yelled. "Yuli this, Yuli that. You two call each other all the time. Yuli, Yuli, Yuli. He's not even your family." Phillip's arms tensed, his shoulders bunched. Family is not based on blood, but on love. "I'm supposed to be your fiancé, remember? Yet you talk to a kid more than me." "Bixby, I'll be 18 next month," I stammered. "What are we competing over? I've barely even met you, and why are my cards in your pocket?" Phillip smirked. "Ask him. He'll say it was a joke." His dark tone told me it wasn't a joke. "Bixby, what does this mean?" I asked. "Don't make me out to be the villain. You are the most selfish person I've ever met. I'm a poor foster kid. I don't have a family. I'm so needy. I'm so insecure. I took your stupid cards because I wanted to see you humiliate yourself." "Insecure," repeated in my brain. Phillip's voice grew into steel. "Bixby, just leave." He threw his wedding ring at the man. "You're just as insecure as he is. I was homeless. My parents stopped financing my college. You two are pathetic. No wonder you call each other all the time." Insecure. I closed my eyes, enduring the emotions bouncing around inside me. "Babe, I'm giving you a choice." Bixby folded his arms, his eyes flaring. Me or Yuli? Right now, choose. Insecure rang in my head, an echo that wouldn't stop. I pushed past the fear, found my voice. You're jealous of me? Why? The glare Bixby gave me would have curdled bed sheets. Because with you around, I don't have a chance. Phillip won't stop thinking about you. Insecure whispered in my mind. You are a jerk, Phillip said. Choose, Bixby ordered. Something dark wavered in his eyes. His lips clenched and his eyes grew misty. Me or him? You can't have us both. Phillip's neck tightened. Bixby glared. The wrinkles on the bedspread froze like waves. The dusk on the other side of the window signaled the end of the day. The lingering fragrance of the lasagna grew fainter. How can anybody love someone as insecure as me? 10 families had already given me away. Phillip would be the same. My lungs forgot to breathe. The slow prickle of goosebumps on my neck echoed another attack. Insecure whispered a little louder in my mind. This was my fault. Phillip was my friend. I had to do something, say something. Phillip's glance in my direction silenced my voice. A slow, patient look that held back emotion. I couldn't tell what emotion until he spoke. He walked over to me, stood behind me, and placed his arms about me. Seriously? An ultimatum? You expect me to beg? Phillip yelled. Someday, I hope you have to live what Yuli and I faced. You just don't understand us. This proves you never understood me. You're choosing him? Some broken high school kid over the man that loves you? Choosing my family? Phillip said. You're damn right. Bixby seemed about to shout something, but closed his mouth instead. Goodbye, Bixby. Phillip's voice held a coldness I'd never heard before. Don't worry, I'll rearrange my flight so we won't sit next to each other and move out as soon as I get back. Epilogue. It was close to midnight. The house was quiet. Bixby had left. Suitcase stuffed, pride trailing behind him like smoke. I found Phillip on the couch, holding a pillow like I held my backpack. He stared out the window, but wasn't seeing anything. I walked into the kitchen, placed some of Mom's orange fudge on a plate. I smiled, because the first night we met, he had brought me Mom's candy cane fudge. And I brought the plate to the living room. Phillip looked up. I sat beside him, took his arm, and wrapped mine around his shoulders. I cuddled him into me, like he had done for me 2 years ago. No words, just warmth. Just the quiet truth that love, when it's real, doesn't need to be explained. We sat like that for a long time, and for the first time, I didn't feel insecure. I felt home. I handed him the plate and said, "Take one, and tell me 5 things you see." Phillip looked about, taking a piece of orange fudge, nodding as if thinking. In the stillness, the air conditioner rumbled on. Cool air blew about the room. The curtains fluttered, giving view of the nighttime street. A silver truck drove past. The air smelled of chocolate and orange and Phillip's cologne. Phillip's shoulders relaxed. In a quiet voice that hinted of a smile, he said, "I see the fudge, your backpack, the coffee table, the pillow, and someone who sees me." Thank you, my friends, for sitting with me in this moment. Stories like these remind us that healing doesn't always come with answers. It comes with presence, with warmth, with someone who sees you. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to feel less alone. And remember, your voice matters. Your story matters, and you are never too broken to be loved. I'm Gio, and I love you all. Peace, my friends.